Yeah, welcome back. This is part 3 of the Michael Holman interview, which is going to be absolutely incredible. We're going to be talking about when Michael first met Malcolm McLaren, the importance of Malcolm McLaren, you know, as in one of the people to help spread that kind of hip hop knowledge to the world. And yeah, it's going to be absolutely incredible. But if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2 yet, then go back and check out part 1 and part 2. But yeah, this is part 3. And whatever you do, subscribe to this channel, subscribe and check out the other interviews because you do not want to miss this. But yeah, sit back and enjoy the ride. Peace.
Yeah, Malcolm McLaren was a good friend. Loved him a lot. Especially because he was such an interesting and unique character in that he found so many fascinating. He found so much fascination in obscure things and obscure cultures, and was instrumental in bringing so many things to the fore. He was absolutely instrumental in the early days of hip hop, helping give it a voice on an international stage. There's no question. I was also part of that dynamic, that particular story. As I told you before, I have this good friend still alive. He's a good friend of mine named Stan Pescott. He's moved back to England, but he was one of my few early friends in New York that I knew when I first moved here. And like I said, Stan is a little bit older than me. He went to the Royal College of Art in London. He knew a lot of cool people there. And he went to that school at the same time that McLaren, for one, went at the same time. This is in the 70s. So he knew Malcolm really well. And Malcolm, now, remember I was telling you about that Canal Zone party when I first met Basquiat? April 79. So less than a year later, in the summer of 80, Stan Pescott's still throwing these Canal Zone parties, maybe once a month. And so he throws one party and he says, you got to come because my friend Malcolm McLaren's going to be here. So he was in town the summer of 81, preparing, and he was in town to promote Bow Wow Wow's performance at the Ritz in New York on East 11th Street in the East Village. And I had never met him before. I was very familiar with punk culture. Like I said, I was back from the disco punk days from San Francisco. Was a big punk scene there. Saw the Sex Pistols at Winterland. But, you know, I'm one of those Americans who say it like it is. Punk started in New York. It was started by television. It was started by the Ramones. Started by a lot of bands like that. They went over to England and met Malcolm and blew his mind. He brought them over, actually. I'd take that back. Malcolm McLaren actually came to New York and saw this scene called punk. It was already had a name, Legs McNeil, who had a magazine called Punk, and it was about punk music, which is like raw music that almost anyone could play if they had an attitude and da-da-da. But it was a very small scene. It only existed in New York, maybe a few other cities. It was really a New York thing. Malcolm McLaren, as his wont, recognized it as something big, brought a lot of these artists to London and laid these seeds for a movement that was much bigger and more skillful and more tasteful and more enjoyable as it was expressed by English artists. I would rather, you know, on a desert island, probably have Nevermind the Bullocks than any Ramones record. But that said, it started in New York first. At this stage, Malcolm is on to his next movement in music. Punk is dead by now. And he's now in the whole the new romantic scene. So at this stage, Malcolm has moved on and he's into the new romantic scene, you know, with Adam Ant and Boy George and Culture Club, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and Bow Wow Wow. And Bow Wow Wow, RCA artist, was one of his artists. And he was in town with this guy named Rory Johnston, who was an executive, he's an A&R guy at RCA, and represented and signed Bow Wow Wow. So I meet at this Canal Zone party at Stan Peskett's loft. He introduces me to Malcolm McLaren. Now, by 81, I have already started Gray with Basquiat and left Gray. Doesn't exist anymore. We were around for like those 2.5 years. I have already, maybe a year before that, with the guidance and being turned on to this all by Fab Five Freddy, have become, like him and Charlie Ahern and Henry Chalfant and Martha Cooper, have become one of those agents of bringing hip hop culture downtown in a big way. And I'm introduced to Malcolm, and of course Malcolm is all ears when it comes to some new cultural thing. And I'm trying to figure out how to describe it to him, and I'm realizing I really can't. But the best way to describe it to him would be to show it to him.
Take him to a jam.
Take him to a park jam, exactly. So I asked him about his schedule. Are you going to be around this weekend? Sure. Get his number. He's staying at the Parker Meridian on 57th Street. And right away, I ran home and I called Bambaataa and I said, "Are you doing anything this weekend?" "Yeah, we're having a park jam this Friday." Perfect. I then the next day call Malcolm. We arranged for me for that Friday evening, early evening, for him to pick him up at his hotel with Rory Johnston and take them up to the Bronx River projects, which is no joke. So I show, now by this stage, I'm like a year and a half into this game. And even though I'm a middle class, college educated, former Wall Street executive, I'm now straight up, street kid. And I'm not stupid, so I know to wear certain gear going uptown. I've got on like low-cut Keds with no socks. I've got on cut-off jeans. I've got a nylon t-shirt with a nylon tank top, a little gold chain, and a sailor cap. I'm like summertime hip-hop gear, no question. So I show up in my urban camouflage, ready to pick up Malcolm, so excited to think that I'm going to be that conduit, that catalyst, that agent to introduce someone like Malcolm McLaren to our uptown jam culture. We didn't call it hip hop yet. And knowing that it's going to make something happen, because I just feel in my gut that he's mad open and is going to be open to new things and to help make this explode. I just know it. And by this time, hip hop culture, it's uptown in the Bronx. It's in places in Brooklyn. It's downtown the East Village with a bunch of hipsters. That's it. Nobody knows about this. So I go, and all I'm thinking about is this is so exciting, and Malcolm McLaren created the Sex Pistols and blah, 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 and this is such a great thing, and it's going to be big, and I'm not even thinking about what he's wearing. Not even thinking about it. I get to I'm waiting for him. I'll never forget. I remember like yesterday waiting in the lobby, calling up his room. "Yeah, come on up." So I get in the elevator, go to the room. And there's Malcolm McLaren and Rory Johnston dressed like Pirates of the Penzance on acid. I mean, it's just like, oh shit. I mean, they're dressed like, psychedelic clown pirates. Anyhow, I get into the room and they're dressed in a way that when we go up to the Bronx, we're guaranteed to get evicted. We're guaranteed to get like held up. Someone's gonna like roll up on us, bright orange hair and his pantaloons and it's right out of, you remember what the new romantic look was? It was crazy. It was like
the frilly shirts and velvet.
Frilly pirate shirts. It was meant to be excessive. It wasn't what you go up to the Bronx, the boogie down in 1981 wearing.
In the South Bronx, yeah.
Not the look. Anything I say to him in terms of cautionary, like, you can't wear that or we're going to get vicked or this is dangerous, it's just going to go over his head. He's going to go, "Oh, Michael, I'm an intrepid Englishman. We travel the world and don't you worry your pretty little colonial head. I can take care of myself." I'm assuming that this is Malcolm McLaren, man. He's not gonna be told what to wear. And if I told him that, or if I asked him that, it would make him even more intransigent in terms of like not changing his look. Like, fuck you, this is my style, man. This is badass in London. What are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
So we go outside, my two clown pirate friends, because Rory Johnston's rocking the same look, same equally piratey, we're pirates, like Halloween, it's total Halloween. And I'm like, okay. So we go down and we try to find a cab. No, I hail 5 or 6 cabs. None of them will take us. Why? Because none of them will go to the Bronx. Hell no, they're not going up to the Bronx. And they just speed off because they're legally not supposed to be able to do that. We pull over this one gypsy cab, and it's being driven by a Puerto Rican woman. And she's like, sure, I'll take you up there because I live nearby and, I'll end my day. Perfect. So we jump in a cab, we're driving up. We get to the probably 6 or 8 square blocks that make up the whole Council Flat of Bronx River projects, Council Flat area, with this community center, 1-story community center at its center. We get to the block, she lets us out, and all the street lights along the street have all been shot out. No lights coming from the street lights. And I'm going, oh my God. And I'm right away feeling extremely vulnerable. But the one good thing at that moment is there's nobody around. There's nobody on the streets. Clearly, everybody has like a magnet sucked themselves into the party. What does that mean? Okay, so the Bronx River projects made up of about 8 large, very tall council flats, maybe almost 30 stories, all kind of in a pattern. And in the center was a community center. And you could hear and see the light from the party and hear the beats from the party wafting, bouncing against the buildings and then leaking out between the buildings out to where we were standing. And it was like straight out of like a novel, like Joseph Conrad novel, like Heart of Darkness. Like 19th century English pith helmet explorers, going down the Congo and hearing the beats and the drum. That's what it felt like. And you could hear just like the remnants of the beats leaking out between the buildings. And because there was no light and because you could hear these beats, it was so romantic in a way and so cinematic. It was like Apocalypse Now. It was so wild. So I'm like, okay, Malcolm, okay, Rory, let's go. Because I didn't want to hang around in the park area where we were. I wanted to get where the community center was. That's where the real party was happening. We walk in between the buildings, and almost like this, like these curtains drawing apart, which was the buildings drawing apart as we get there, we see a sea of about 1,000 kids, these same middle school kids, 12 to 15, 16, Black, Puerto Rican, and white, because there are white kids living up there. I'd say 70% Black, I'd say 25% Puerto Rican, and I'd say 5% white. But all of them are 100% street, 100% like fucking down motherfuckers. Hardcore kids you could not fuck with, ever. If you were their equivalent somewhere, you couldn't mess with them. Is it okay if I use profanity here?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So there's a sea of kids dancing to what was once just bass notes, kind of raw bass notes that you hear through a wall in a building. Now you hear the music and you see the crowd and the lights from the building is lighting up the thing. And the lights are on here. And it's both dark and light and it's focused lights. And the kids are rocking and dancing. And Bambaatá's off to the right. Never forget, he was off to the right. And he had a couple of card tables with sound system, all 4 different turntables set up, a rope around that. And he was there behind the turntables, and Jazzy J was next to it, another one. And Ike C, who was a Zulu Nation MC, he's rapping while the kids are dancing. And he's, Ike C is hyping up the
Prince
DJ.
Ike C, yeah.
And the three of us walk up like ultimate outsiders, because I might have looked young and dressed hip, but Malcolm and Rory, who were probably all of, 30 something, they were still kids, were like the adults, dressed in white, like white people who were not from around there, dressed like pirate clowns. The three of us were standing there staring at this chaos. So a fight would break out, and all like a quarter of the crowd would run over through the masses to stand around and watch this fight. And then another fight would break out, and the same crowd of kids would run over and like stand around and watch this fight. And this was going on, and people from the projects, from the buildings, were yelling, "Turn that music off!" and throwing bottles down and glass breaking. And it's just wild and chaos. And I'm looking over at Malcolm in the corner of my eye, and he and Rory are just like, "Oh shit!" And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't say this out loud, I'm thinking to myself, "You're not so bad, are you, Sex Pistol motherfucker? You're not so bad. This is beyond anything you've ever seen, motherfucker. I know that right now." And they're just like, "Oh shit, Michael, we got to get out of here." And I'm like, "Malcolm, listen, we can't go anywhere because we've been spotted. We can't leave now. We've got to stay where we are. And if anything, go deeper in." I said, don't worry, everything's cool. Come with me. By the way, during all this time, these 3 or 4 minutes of this chaos that we're witnessing as these wild-looking outsiders, nobody ever came up to us. Nobody ever approached us, threatened us, gave us any shit or anything. They left us alone, to their credit. And I still wonder that why no one, there might have been some intellectual lack of curiosity as to why no one came up to us and asked, "Who are you?" or "What are you wearing?" or whatever, because it was really alien. But also to their credit, they were like, "We're from New York. We don't care who you are, what you look like. We're not impressed." Because there was that equally. So we get to the turntables, and I introduce Malcolm to Bam, and Rory to Bam and Jay, and they say, yeah, come behind the ropes. So now we're behind the turntables, in the party establishment, if you will. And still Malcolm is like looking out, and he's going like, this is crazy, Michael. We can't stay. We got to get at her. I said, Malcolm, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I say to Bam, I say, listen, Bam, man, we're losing him. Because Bam was just playing records, because he was not a turntable. He never was a turntablist. He just plays records. He still isn't. I said, man, you got to because what he's doing is not novel. Get jazzy on the turntables. Get jazzy, get a turntablist going. We didn't call it turntablism yet. So he goes, okay, after this record. So the record passes, and Jazzy gets on the turntable, and he starts to cut shit up. He's cutting shit up. And I say, Malcolm, you see what he's doing? I called it at that time special mix DJing. Nobody called it turntablism. I said, that's special mix turntable DJing. See, and then see that kid over there, man, that's breakdancing. And see that over there? That's graffiti. And he's going, oh yeah, I see it. It's starting to make sense to him. He's starting to wake up to it. He's starting to see through the fog and see what is this culture, the elements of this culture, and the energy of the culture. And he's going, yeah, this is great. This is great. And I'm pointing out people and da-da. And he's always been about dance, because he went on to voguing and everything else. He said, this is great. He said to me, I think he had a conversation with Bam for a minute. Then he said to me, let's get out of here, but I got an idea. I'm like, okay. We were there maybe not more than 40 minutes, maybe half an hour.
Wow.
We weren't there that long.
Wow.
You know what happened that was really amazing too? Never forget this. Bam puts on Mary Mary. by
Mary,
the Monkees.
Mary,
Right?
why you bugging?
Where
Yeah,
you going to? Dun,
yeah,
dun,
yeah.
dun. The kids not paying attention to Malcolm. Plus, Malcolm's in another world. He's in New Romantics. But the kids understood that Bam playing Mary Mary was a statement about punkism. Even though punk is out of fashion by this time, it's not so out of fashion in the Bronx. It's still just this weird thing that white kids do downtown. They're not going to do it. They're not going to into it, but they heard about it, right? When they heard Mary Mary and I Dream of Jeannie, they all started to pogo.
Wow.
To do
Really?
the pogo.
Yeah.
Like punk kids in the 70s, they were doing the pogo because they knew from watching TV that white kids, when they danced to their white kids' music, which the Monkees sound like, forget the fact that the song is 30 years old by that time, you do the pogo. And they did it with a laugh. They were like, yeah, we're enjoying ourselves, making believe we're somebody else as we dance to some other music. And this was way going over Malcolm's head because he's still just like in culture shock and not knowing where he is. But I'm already very much acclimatized. And I'm seeing this, and again, like I said, I'm an armchair anthropologist. I'm seeing these kids dancing this pogo to Mary Mary as a really interesting statement. You know, it's a really fascinating statement. But anyway, so we don't just leave. Bambaataa like, oh no, you're not just gonna walk away. You've got to take 4 Zulu Nation escorts with you to the cab. Big dudes as protection, which is a statement about what we came through without any protection was insanely dangerous. Now, 4 Zulu Nation escorts, you know, ex-gang members, blah, 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 take us to the main street, and we eventually get a cab.
And you get gypsy cab back.
Yeah. And Malcolm says in the car, he says, Michael, I got a plan. My plan is I'm going to give you a budget. It's a lot of money at the time. It's like $3,000, $3,000. And I want you to put together an opening act for Bow Wow Wow when they come in September, right? That's why he was there, to promote the show. That's how nimble and quick and easy to change plans and to morph and to accommodate that Malcolm was. So he leaves it to me. He only knew me 2 days. Amazing. I mean, it was in capable hands, but he didn't know that. He trusted. So by this stage, I'd already made Catch a Beat. So I already knew Rocksteady, and I'm their unofficial agent or unofficial manager at this stage. I'm getting them gigs, whatnot. They're in between managers. Henry Chalfant was managing them at a time. But I'm friends with Legs and Ken Swift and everybody, Frosty Freeze, and you know, and I'm working with them on different things. So I'm thinking, what's my review? What's my show going to be that's going to open up for Bow Wow Wow? So my first step was Bambaataa, of course, Jazzy J, of course. They're going to play music. Bambaataa's going to play record. Jazzy J is going to jump in and turntablism. IPC, Zulu Nation MC, of course. Rocksteady, who I had been managing, of course. When I put that review together, Rocksteady was the first time they met Bambaataa. Legs and them, they'd never met Bambaataa before. That was the first time. I'm showing my film, Catch a Beat, which I just finished days before. And you know, there's this big screen at the Ritz that you can show films on. Got graffiti from, I believe, the Tats crew, which is connected to Bambaataa because they're from the same area. And what's important about this is when that event happened, it was in the Village Voice, the ad, opening for Bow Wow Wow at the Ritz. When that performance happened, even though you had hip-hop clubs uptown, like the Fever and Stardust Ballroom and stuff like that, years before, no club had ever put on a hip-hop event, a paying, where you had to pay to get in to see a hip-hop event with all the elements of hip-hop before. Never happened before. Wow. Therefore, that performance, opening up for Bow Wow Wow, my review that opens up for Bow Wow Wow with Zulu Nation. We called it Zulu Nation Throwdown. Was the first all-element hip-hop performance in history.
Wow, incredible.
Next, what's interesting that's next, and now you can see there's a lot of English have a lot of credit in these early days in terms of helping to promote it. So Malcolm has this young girl named Ruza Blue, we all know now, who I think is helping him with his shop or something. She's very much a new romantic. She's friends with Cosmo Vinyl, who's the manager of The Clash. Cosmo Vinyl has a night at a club called The Grill, literally 3-4 blocks away from the Ritz in the East Village. It's called The Grill, after the Jamaican club. It's a Jamaican club. It's on 2nd Avenue and 12th Street. There's a movie theater there now. Negril gives Cosmo Vinyl, I'm sure the Clash went recorded music in Jamaica, right? And knows the big Jamaican connection between the Clash, right? Reggae and all that. So Cosmo Vinyl has this night. Well, he's too busy. And so he lets this young girl, this young enterprising girl, Ruza Blue, have his Thursday night at Negril. Ruza Blue, being Malcolm's friend, is there at the night at the Ritz, the Zulu Nation Throwdown. She's there. She hunts me down, says, "You're the one responsible for this." "Yeah, I have this night at this club called The Grill. Would you bring your hip-hop review to my Thursday nights?" Boom. Again, this is why when I first was introduced to Malcolm, I knew something big was about to happen because of who he is, right? So now I take Bambaataa, Jazzy J, IDC, and a bunch of people from the Zulu Nation world with Ramel Z, Fat Five Freddy, Rocksteady Crew, everybody. Am I showing my little film on monitors in this little club? Now there's a club on a regular basis every Thursday night in that fall of '81, starting in October, where all the hipsters from the East Village can come and experience this new movement. Still wasn't called hip hop yet. Again, history. In many cases, we were accidental anthropologists, putting together a culture that we thought existed and in a certain way, and in many cases it didn't. We were forcing artists together thinking that they always worked together, and it wasn't the case. So the downtown scene has a lot of, deserves a lot of credit for hip hop going worldwide.
But do you know what it was, being from the UK? I mean, we was hearing like Rapper's Delight and Curtis Blow in 1979. And also we was into electro funk, obviously hearing, Planet Rock in 82 and, it's all basic body popping and also like robotics and all that kind of stuff. But do you know what it really was that kind of cemented the elements of hip hop together? For us, it was Buffalo Girls. The Buffalo Girls video by Malcolm McLaren was absolutely pivotal with the development of hip hop in the UK, the Buffalo Girls video, because that's the first time we see breaking, graffiti, and people like scratching on the decks, and it was brilliant.
Right. Well, what I was going to say, and you make the point, is I believe very strongly that if hip hop had not had that chance to come downtown and present itself accidentally or on purpose as a movement with dance and writing and music and vocals of equal importance, especially dance, and it hadn't come downtown and nobody cared downtown, and it had only been, as you said, Sugar Hill Gang or Curtis Blow, who I love is a brother, I don't think it would have happened the same way. I don't think it would have been as big. I think it would have been a novelty thing that would have come and gone. What made hip hop explode and then stick was the dance. It was b-boying. breaking was the lost leader of hip hop. Breaking broke down the doors for hip hop because people around the world who were wondering, well, what is this new movement you're trying to sell me on? What's so exciting about it? I've heard of DJs, somebody's rapping on a mic. I mean, James Brown rapped. Graffiti I've heard about for the last 20 years. It was the dance, man. It was the dance that brought everybody to the grill.
It was electric. Electric.
It was the dance. It was the breaking. Breaking broke down the doors for hip hop. And it was the dance that was one of the most integral parts of bringing it downtown. And it was the dance that was one of the most integral parts of exploding it out to the rest of the world. And you had B-boys all over the world before you ever had MCs or DJs. Kids wanted to dance. The kids wanted, and it was truly the lost leader of hip hop culture. And I think Malcolm understood that too. But I knew that because that was my whole MO.
Absolutely incredible.
You see what I'm wearing here, man? New York City Breakers. What? My design, my crew. That we should talk about Phase because I can't go on forever. But
I was going to say, how did you meet Phase2?
Something people have asked me that, and I just can't remember. He was someone right after my own heart in that he was multi-talented, had a lot of interests, aerosol art, but he was an MC. He was a freestyle dancer. I don't think he really DJ'd much. He might have. He was who was interested in everything. And he saw in me and I saw in him a kindred spirit because we were just such, polymaths, right? Renaissance artists, polymaths. And we were a similar age. We were older than most of the other hip hop heads that we knew who at that time were in their teens and early 20s. And I would have been by this time in 80. Well, I was born in 55. So by 1980, I was already 25. And he and I were around the same age. So we had a lot of similar references. So like he understood a lot of the music that was coming from the West Coast. He knew all about Tower of Power and You're Still a Young Man. And we would talk about all this different music that we were into that was funk and soul that a lot of the people that we were working with who were a little bit younger really didn't understand or know. And so we had a lot in common. And so many projects that I was doing downtown, I would always hire him to do the flyers for. So, that was a friendship connection there. Whenever like some TV magazine show, national TV magazine show like PM Magazine would come and find me, because at this stage, I'm already like that person that a lot of media people will come to and ask to do interviews with, etc. So whenever these magazine shows would want someone to come and explain this new thing, they would always call on me, and I would have the New York City Breakers perform, and I would always invite Phase2 to be part of it, and he would rap in some of them, and he would do graffiti in them, and so we were always boys that way. We were always mates, always boys. When I was doing the grill, I already had Phase doing the flyers for it. We were already friends by the time the grill happened. So I really not sure when I met Phase. I bet you I know someone who could tell me though. It was probably my bandmate from Grey, Nick. He probably knows. Again, Phase is so multifaceted. He had a band, this kind of downtown kind of bit rock, not rock, but kind of vocal band with my bandmate Nick Taylor called Nick Nice and the Generation. And Phase was one of the vocalists in that, a background kind of vocalist in a way. I mean, he did so many different things. People would be surprised.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, Nick Nice and the Generation. Phase2 was in that. I can show you pictures of all this. Anyway, so Phase and I are already boys by the time the grill's happening, and Rocksteady Crew is performing. And then I asked, Legs, I said, Legs, man, listen, you guys perform every Thursday night for the crowd. It's really great. It's like a half-hour little thing you guys do half-hour break in the night where people are normally dancing. Everyone gets off the dance floor, and Rocksteady Crew takes over on this like a foot-high raised dance floor, and people all sort of gather around watching the break. I said, this is getting a little stale. I want you to bring another crew and have a battle them. That would be amazing. And of course, Legs, being clever and smart and not wanting to share the spotlight, didn't like that idea. He resisted. But after a while, he changed his mind. And he brought this crew called the Floor Masters from the Bronx because they had befriended each other in a very interesting story. They were set to battle a couple of weeks before at Kennedy High School in the Bronx, where neither crew went to that school. And I don't know why, who knows why things happen, but the whole school turned on both crews. And they had to fight their way out of this party at this auditorium at the high school. They had to back-to-back fight their way out, throwing blows to get out alive. So it engendered a friendship, right? Of course you're going to be friends after that. So Legs was like, okay, I'll invite the Floor Masters. So the Floor Masters come down and they battle Rocksteady at one of the many Thursday nights at the Grill. And I was done, man. When I saw the Floor Masters, I saw my first experience with power moves. And Phase and I had the same idea at the same time. It was, what if there was, because all these crews, Rocksteady, whatever crew, doesn't matter. All these Seven Deadly Sins and Dynamic Rockers, on and on and on. IBM, Incredible Breakmasters was the first crew I managed. All these crews were neighborhood crews. They were all, homeboys hanging out. They each had certain strengths and weaknesses, and they were all up, and they each had different moves they did. And there was some that were great, some that weren't great, but they were boys. They were, they were mates. They hung out and they protected each other. So battles were tricky things because some would be strong, some would be weak. What Phase and I came up with was an idea of, what if we put together an all-star crew? What if we put together a crew, artificially put together, we put together? Not kids on the neighborhood saying, hey, let's start a crew. No, some adult guys in their 20s. We put together a crew. But everyone in the crew is strong. No weaknesses. And we'll raid crews from all over the city, taking the best at whoever wants to join us. That's what we did. And Phase called it the New York City Break. He named it. He was going to be one of the stars in the Beat Street film. I was a producer on the film Beat Street. But Phase2, he was such a pioneer and so passionate about the science and art of aerosol writing, graffiti writing, whatever you want to call it. He's a giant. He's a giant in that world and so creative as a writer, a lyricist, a rapper, a dancer, an athlete. I mean, he could do almost anything. He was just one of these amazing characters. One of these geniuses that it would be so easy for people of a certain class and background to just dismiss out of hand people like Phase2 because he comes from the Bronx. And think about this, that so many young people who, during Reagan's presidency in the early days, and when the Bronx was written off as just this lost cause of ghetto violence and destruction and uselessness, that out of those ashes rises a subculture and a culture, really, that is worth billions of dollars, that is maybe more, that maybe trillions, that has transformed human history and continues to transform and impact human history in a way that maybe we haven't seen yet, politically, in terms of voting, in terms of leadership, and things that haven't even raised their heads yet, that we may see soon. Hip hop as it impacts world culture, as it impacts world politics, as it impacts world history. I mean, every country around the world has dancers and writers and rhyme spitters and turntablists. Every country just about. Hip hop has touched the entire world. So there's going to be a moment, guarantee you, when somebody, may not even come from New York, may come from somewhere else, is going to recognize that opportunity and speak up to the world. Could be a guy, could be a woman, and who will say, hip hop heads, unite. It's our world now. We can vote in and vote out anyone we please because we are the numbers. We, if we decide to take voting seriously, can take over the world politically. As a matter to that point, the New York City Breakers, we did a voting ad in 1983, I think, 83 or 84, in our black Heinz suits. And it was a get out and vote with a friend. And I'm going to start putting that out there again. But one day, a visionary is going to come along and say, hip hop heads, unite. Let's set our differences aside. Let's set the fact that one of you might be a writer, another one might be a dancer. Let's set all those differences aside and let's join together and support this politician or tell that politician what we want and create a new world. Change the world, change the environment, show respect for people of color, show respect for third world countries, show respect for the environment, show respect for everything and everybody, but do it through a hip hop lens. We can do that. Hip hop is a multicultural thing. Hip hop comes from all over the world. It's not just a black American thing. It's a Puerto Rican thing. It's an Asian thing. It's a white thing. There are kids from all over the world, from all colors, who have contributed to hip hop in the early days, as I said. And it's time that we use that license. It's time that we use those identity politics that are built into hip hop to then turn around and reach out to the rest of the world and say, we are all hip hop. Let's join together.
As one force. As one force.
As one force.
Yeah, amazing.
One political force.
One big
that hasn't been
hip hop
done
force. Yet. Yeah, one big hip hop force.
That hasn't been done yet. Hasn't been done yet. The fact that it hasn't been done just means it's going to come. It's coming. And it might save the world. It might end up saving the world.
I hope so.
A global, like the UN, a world government.
Like a global,
based on
global force. A global force.
A global cultural force that has political ramifications.
A global hip hop force. Wow.
Yeah.
Right, we're just taking a pause for the calls, and yeah, please join me for part 4. And I'm going to be talking to Michael about, Graffiti Rock, as well as a few other, obviously, subject matters as well. So please join me for part 4. Also check out part 2 and part 1, because the history is absolutely incredible. I'll put the links in below, and also please press subscribe. Press the subscribe button down there somewhere. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, because I'm bringing some serious hip hop history to your ears. And I've interviewed, Public Enemy, DJ Cuba, DJ Cash Money, as well as many more legends, in this hip hop game. So please press subscribe and please share the history. And listen, thanks for subscribing and thanks for watching. Peace.